I remember this kind of feeling, kind of just like overwhelm my body of just stop being sad, as absurd as that is, or it was this feeling of like completely overwhelming my sense of sadness, and it just completely took over my emotions, and I just stopped feeling sad. There's always a lot of stuff going on in the world. Not anything specific, but there's always so much going on everywhere all at once, and going on in people's lives. There's always so much going on at any one specific time that it can be extremely overwhelming. And there are times when I get extremely cynical with like work, I guess. Things will be going bad at work, things will be going bad in my life, or maybe adjacent things, like maybe in my friends' lives, and that kind of weighs on me. And but for some reason, I'm a very optimistic person. I'm a very positive person. I'm not really too sure why. I think back to one example where it was during a slump, one of those down times in the year, and I was just like really upset. I was really sad, probably depressed, seasonal thing. And I remember sitting there working and just being, all kind of up in my own head. And I remember this kind of feeling, kind of just like overwhelm my body of just stop being sad. As absurd as that is, it was this feeling of like completely overwhelming my sense of sadness, and it just completely took over my emotions, and I just stopped feeling sad. And I'm not too sure why that happens. That's and I remember very like my inner monologue was basically telling me that there's no reason to be sad. I shouldn't be sad right now. This is ridiculous. Stop thinking like this. Stop acting like this. What are you doing? Take a step back, look at the situation. This isn't as bad as you're making it. Now clearly this is not mental health advice, but that type of mentality, for some reason, it's just like a natural thing that I have. I'm not too sure what it is exactly, where like the constant forward thinking, constantly moving forward kind of attitude comes from. Like, why do I stay optimistic? How do I stay optimistic even though things are like bad? It's like I guess if we take a step back, I stay optimistic because I guess it's a couple things. One of the things being generally just kind of sitting there, other than like processing your emotions, just sitting there and just like dwelling in stuff just kind of irks me. I'm a very, if there's a problem, I want to fix it right away kind of guy. I'm not a very, let me think about it for a couple weeks. I'm a very, if I have the ability to fix something quickly, I'm going to fix it real quick. Because I have the ability to. If I have control over it, I care about it. If I care about it and I have control over it, I usually try to fix the thing pretty quick. I don't dwell on stuff. I just kind of, I'll take the emotion in, and like I've talked about previously, I'll just like compartmentalize it. I'll put it in a box, put a label on it, put it in the pile of other boxes. Understand the feelings that are there, but also understanding that, hey, dwelling on this situation will just make me more sad. It'll just make me more angry. It'll just make me more upset. And you know, this is more with like a personal thing, with like personal stuff. You could probably do this where in that you can deal with the problem, you know, head on. You just kind of get it over with, rip the band-aid off if need be, just kind of get it over with, and just keep moving forward on like a larger level. Like we talk about more like larger levels, things that I can't really control, that are outside of my realm of, like, outside my reach. More like external things, like, I don't know, health or other, you know, situations. Those are the types of situations and things that you think about and you think about and you think about, and you can't really do anything about it. I mean, there's things you can do. But realistically, if there's a problem like, hey, kids around the country don't have enough food to eat, kind of thing, you're like, well, like right now I can't really do anything. And so maybe you're at work and you're thinking about it, like you can't do anything. You just can't do it in that moment. You can't do anything about it. But if it's a long standing thing that you're constantly worrying about, then it's like, okay, well, maybe there's some longer standing things you can do. But then there's, even outside of that, there's just like certain events that happen in the world you just can't control. And you know, I mean, you can like sit there and like dwell on it, and you could get very cynical about it if you keep going down that rabbit hole of like, oh, this thing happened, then what, and then you kind of lose yourself in that. So, well, how do I stay optimistic? I just don't dwell on stuff. That's one. I kind of look at the good. I look at the good in most things, and I usually, in the vast, there's very, very few situations that I have gotten into in which I don't find something that I have gained out of it, regardless of the situation, no matter how bad it is. Generally, I almost always, the way I see things is, no matter how bad the situation is, there's always some positive in it, something that I've gained. I always am able to, I don't know, I mean, okay. Sometimes I do some mental gymnastics. I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes I do some mental gymnastics. I won't lie about that. But I don't think that's bad. I don't think doing mental gymnastics is bad when you're worried about something, or you're starting to become cynical about something, to try to get yourself out of it. I think that's all right. I think that's fine. I don't, doing mental gymnastics to, you know, deal with a personal situation that is like genuinely like kind of bad, and like trying to find some good out of it, and then just like taking the good and being like, okay, whatever, on the rest. as like ridiculous as that is, it has legitimately kept me going. And like, I'm not saying that, oh, just ignore the bad stuff. I think you, because just doing mental gymnastics is not bad. It usually when people talk about it, it's in a bad sense. I think it's a neutral term generally, and you can do mental gymnastics about stuff, because usually mental gymnastics, the metaphor is used in a way in which someone is trying to convince themselves of something bad that happened. Oh, no. They're trying to convince themselves that something they did was right, or something they said was right, and they're like doing, like, you know, they're tying themselves in a knot, to use another metaphor to explain it, to explain the thing. But I think I mean, I guess it's not even mental gymnastics when you look at a situation. I think objectively, you can look at a situation objectively and find good out of it. You can always find some good out of it. Whether, I mean, it might just be you learn something. That's it. Literally, that could be it. Or like, I've been in situations where because something bad happened, and the series of events that followed that bad thing happening, it ended up me in a situation in which I was better off than I was previously. And so I mean, looking at it objectively, the quote unquote bad situation I got into wasn't bad. It was necessary for me to get where I am now. Some deadline doesn't get hit, something doesn't happen in the way I want it to, somebody fails to do something in the way I would have wanted it done, and we are set back, and or things don't happen. And then what usually happens is, when that thing happens, because I wanted it to happen in a certain way, and because that thing didn't happen in a certain way, I was upset. And because I was upset, I start to dwell on it. I start to think about it too much. I start to, kind of go down that rabbit hole of being cynical about the thing. And so what I try to do is I constantly try to take a step back and look at stuff objectively, to understand that, hey, is this better or worse? Is like this really better or worse? Like, actually, is it really better or worse? So how do I stay optimistic? One, I try not to dwell on stuff. I try not to let things start to overthink ideas, and it's going to happen. I'm not saying this is a perfect. You are, as a person, constantly battling thought that you do not create, and your other self is constantly putting these ideas in your head and constantly trying to pull you in a direction that they think is right, whether that is or is not the case. And like this type of situation where the thoughts pop up and your inner self is trying to pull you in a direction of like thinking about it constantly, and you don't want to, and you just gotta accept that, hey, these thoughts are going to happen, and sometimes unwillingly you kind of get pulled in that direction, and you're going to get pulled down that rabbit hole of being cynical about stuff and being worried about stuff. But you just gotta understand that, hey, sometimes dwelling on the situation or topic will not achieve better results. Now, sometimes fair enough, you will be able to think about a situation long enough, unpack it enough to then be able to find a solution to that situation that's desirable for yourself. But most of the time, that's not going to happen. So second, how do I stay optimistic? Try to be objective about situations and find the positive in every single situation, whether you have to do mental gymnastics or not. Because realistically, unless you are confronted with a different opinion to yours, and in that way you're trying to do mental gymnastics to make yourself right, that's a different situation. What I'm talking about is when you come up to a situation in which you don't really have control over it, because that's most situations in life, you just don't have control over them. There almost always is some hint or some silver lining, I guess people will call it, that you can find in literally any situation. Maybe you learn something, maybe it's such, even if it's super, super, super minor, realistically, there is no point in sitting there and dwelling on it. Again, there is no point in sitting there and dwelling on it unless it's a type of situation that you can think through. If it's not something you can think through, take the good, just move on. It doesn't have to be crazy. Of course, it's like the don't cry over spilt milk, because milk realistically doesn't matter too much. It just doesn't matter. It's some liquid, right? It's a bunch of water and like protein. Like it's not, or whatever milk is made of. I don't know what milk's made of. How do I stay positive, stay optimistic, regardless of situations? I don't dwell on the situation at hand for too long. I can dwell on it, but I don't have to dwell on it. Usually I just don't. And then two, I try to be objective about the situation. I look at it, try to take a step back and like look at it objectively, look at the series of events that led me to this situation and or where I'm at now. And look, I'm like, okay, you know, was this good? Was it really bad? And even if it was really bad, was there anything I gained out of it? If I gained literally anything at all, I'm just gonna roll with it because the situation happened. It's in the past now. Dwelling on it, I think it's kind of pointless. It doesn't do anything for you unless it's a currently ongoing situation that you can figure out. If it's a type of situation like, oh, this person hit my car and now I gotta, you know, do all the stuff, then it's like, well, okay, you can't go back in the past and change that. So don't dwell on it. Maybe take something away from it, like, oh, you know how to deal with insurance claims better. I don't know. Something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be that deep. So I think it's good.